To begin this, we can go in the order. There's a logic here. It's going from federal down to lake association levels of activities that are going on and people representing those. So Hilary, if you'd like to start and give your 3 minutes, Jess will be kind enough to give you a reminder when you're nearing the end of your talk.
Good. There you go. All right. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, everybody, once again for being here. As a representative of US EPA, our main mission statement is protect human health and the environment. And when it comes to cyanobacteria, I think EPA does a pretty good job of trying to cover every single base that you can conceive of with that. Everything from drinking water regulations and guidance to recreational water quality criteria, to just general funding for helping research grants taking place. I have a list here because I can't remember everything. Standardized methods development for laboratory analysis of cyanotoxins. Lots of guidance documents that are out there. Health advisories for human health levels. Mainly my, I guess, issues and concerns. I think it's kind of hard as EPA to see where to focus that. I think from my perspective in the region is trying to make sure that we meet the needs of the people in the region at several different levels, whether it be drinking water suppliers or lake association homeowners that have homes and stakes in the resource outside the front door. So really we kind of try to, or personally, that's the reason kind of the CMC evolved from my perspective here, and also why you guys are gathered here today is really to look and bring to a certain level those issues that are most concerned to you, and hopefully EPA can participate in addressing those. So that's what I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Next speaker will be Walter Tokarz, who's representing the Connecticut DEP. So,
good morning. So yeah, I work at the state of Connecticut DEP, work in water quality and assessment. So we're charged with doing all waters in Connecticut. So we have river, lake, and estuary waters. And we monitor all those for water quality. What brings me here is that cyanobacteria obviously has always been in all the waters, but especially in the past 10 years, we've seen with the increase of temperature, more blooms happening. We have some kind of frequent bloom locations, places that we always have known bloom, and we've been dealing with those. But there's been an onset of a lot more new locations that hadn't bloomed before, of all different levels of eutrophic levels that we would expect. So, and temperature regimes. We started the past couple of years kind of looking at how much contact we were getting on these issues, and we kind of generated like a phone email list. And you know, just in 2019 alone, we had over 300 initial contacts, and that's not talking about, you know, us actually going out there or doing anything. It's just the initial report. So that says to us that cyanobacteria, which was most of those issues, is becoming more important and more in the public eye. And then what that did, you know, because we work a lot with rivers and we have a really good system of that, lakes tend to have a much longer, you know, retention time, and they're a little bit more predictable in the water quality in general. But in Connecticut, a lot of those are private. So we tend to generate most of our attention on state level resources, but especially now with the cyanobacteria, this is bringing us more into private places and dealing with lake associations, and we don't really have a good volunteer monitoring program that works with the state yet. So the big struggle that we ran into over the past, say since 2012, has been kind of the communication piece. And an important thing to know, we had a big bloom on Lower Bolton Lake in Connecticut, and it kind of triggered, you know, how do we respond to this and what do we do? And a good thing to remember is, even though we're water quality and environmental, the Department of Public Health is really who is tasked with protecting public health and issuing closures and stuff. So they work with our data, but you know, we have to work with them. So we have some guidance And future goals of things we've been trying to do more of is talk to even like the veterinary community, because we find that we don't have a lot of reported dog deaths are related to cyanobacteria in Connecticut. It doesn't mean they're not happening, but there hasn't been a lot of, connection along those lines. I do have some, resources I can share with people later, or if you just go to Connecticut DEP website and cyanobacteria, you'll get to our link page, which has both us with our guidance and DPH.
Great. Thank you very much. He brought up some very good points. I think the goal is to, after everyone has an introduction, we have a short discussion on some of these points. So Kristin Conte is also representing a large group because it's the largest water supplier in New Hampshire, in Manchester Waterworks. And so she has a few words to say.
Sure. Hello, I'm Kristin Conte. Like Jim said, I work at Manchester Waterworks. We are the largest water utility in New Hampshire. So we deal with cyanobacteria on two different parts. We do get our drinking water from a surface water, Lake Massabesic. So not only do we have to, we're under regulations to follow different things like that being a surface water, but also we deal with the treated drinking water side as well. Because we are the largest water supplier, we just recently were required to test our finished water for cyanotoxins underneath the EPA UCMR 4. So we did test that last year, as well as we are out on the lake. Probably, we try to go out weekly, but sometimes it's a bi-weekly basis that we've been routinely sampling, not only for dissolved oxygen, temperature, things like that, but we've also been including cyanobacteria since 2016. The issues we've come across being, a local government, obviously is budget. A lot of times you need to utilize outside funding to be able to purchase equipment, have training, things like that. So we have gone through those hoops to be able to have the appropriate equipment to be able to do so. And then there's also the issue of equipment. We've gone through about 3 different fluorometers and different methods to make sure that we have something that works for us in our system, as well as comprehension, kind of putting this all together and really understanding not only the best practices but also what we're seeing and trying to relate that to different trends and everything. And then the biggest issue that we've come across is actually dealing with a bloom in our drinking water source. 2017, we saw our first significant bloom in Lake Massabesic. So that gave us challenges we had not had to face before. We serve about 160,000 people. So that was, public health was a big issue. So we learned how to deal with that. We took samples across the lake, not only out there, but also throughout our treatment plant and our treated drinking water. Fortunately, it was not a toxic bloom. But we also had to work with our state government, our NHDES, and public health lab there as well. So with that led us to learn a lot of things about how to properly respond to such a thing. So I can talk more about that after too. So, all right.
Okay, great. Some very interesting points. So the last speaker is John Balanoff, who has recently become the director of the Acton Wakefield Watersheds Alliance, a very active and interesting group it's about 30 miles from here, I believe, is where you're located, and includes both Maine and New Hampshire lakes.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jim. Morning. Yep. So as Jim said, I'm John Balanoff, new director of the Acton Wakefield Watersheds Alliance. So we are sort of the smallest area of focus out of this panel. We focus specifically on 9 lakes up in the Wakefield, New Hampshire, and Acton, Maine area. And we're a nonprofit organization. Our goal is to sort of provide outreach and education as well as technical assistance to lakeside residents and town residents on trying to reduce erosion and phosphorus pollution getting into the lakes. So cyanobacteria is sort of becoming an issue in this area because obviously with the erosion issues that we have on these lakes, phosphorus gets into the water. So teaching people about that issue and how they can prevent it is something we try to do, as well as trying to provide solutions for homeowners to solve those problems as well. But we have blooms coming up on some of our lakes. Some of them haven't had blooms yet, but they want to monitor. So sort of trying to garner the interest and the education on how to do cyanomonitoring on these lakes garnering volunteer interest, because we're a largely volunteer-based organization, is one of the reasons we're part of this group and why we're trying to get more involved in it. We have some people that volunteer right now to do it, but there's sort of a lack of technical expertise in the area. People need to sort of get more involved, which is obviously Jim's been up to our lakes a couple of times with his class to do monitoring, and that's a great outreach tool, and we do get some monitoring done in that way. But we're here to learn a little bit more about it and try to garner more interest for that area and get the volunteers engaged.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to open up then the panel for questions. And if anyone has a question, just please stand up, state the question, and for the sake of those who are looking at this remotely, we're going to have the speaker then repeat the question and then answer it. And the whole panel can pitch in on that. So, yes.